I bought the camera because it was cheap, absurdly cheap, the kind of price that makes you feel like you found something you shouldn't have, tucked away in the back corner of a dim little shop that didn't feel entirely real. The owner barely looked at me when I paid, just slid the camera across the counter and muttered something under his breath, something I didn't catch, or maybe something I chose not to hear. Either way, I left with it, and that should have been the end of it. Just another second-hand purchase, another object with a past I didn't care about. But that night, everything changed. I remember setting it on my desk, turning it over in my hands. It looked old, older than it should have been, the kind of wear that doesn't come from time alone, scratches that felt intentional, like marks left by someone trying to destroy it or get inside it. I laughed it off, told myself I was overthinking, and decided to test it. I pointed it at my room, the bed, the chair, the window, everything exactly as it was, and pressed the shutter. The click was louder than expected, sharp, final, like something sealing shut. I lowered the camera, glanced at the small screen on the back, and felt my stomach drop, because the image wasn't right. It was my room, yes, but different. The lights were off, even though mine were on. The window was open, even though I knew I had closed it. And the chair? The chair was knocked over, lying on its side. I frowned, checked the room again. Everything normal, untouched, exactly how it should be. I took another photo. Same angle, same position. Another click, another image. This time, the chair wasn't just knocked over, it was closer, dragged slightly toward the bed. I felt a chill run through me, a slow, creeping realization that something wasn't lining up. I looked back at the actual chair, still in place, unmoved, untouched. I swallowed hard, forcing a nervous laugh. Glitch, I whispered to myself. Just a glitch. But my voice didn't sound convinced, not even to me. I turned the camera toward the hallway outside my room. The door opened just enough to see into the darkness beyond, and pressed the shutter again. When I checked the image, my hands started to shake, because in the photo, something was standing in the hallway, tall, thin, barely visible, like a shadow that had decided to stay, even without light. I spun around instantly, staring into the real hallway, empty, silent, nothing there. But the image said otherwise. I backed into my room slowly, heart pounding, trying to think, trying to rationalize. Maybe it was showing old photos, maybe it was damaged, corrupted, anything but what it felt like, anything but what my instincts were screaming. I raised the camera again, this time pointing it directly at my door, and took another picture. I hesitated before looking, a strange dread settling in my chest, like I already knew I wasn't going to like what I saw. But I looked anyway, and this time there was no mistaking it. The figure was closer, standing just outside my door, its shape clearer now. Too tall for the frame, head slightly tilted, as if it was looking directly at me through the camera. I couldn't breathe, my chest tightening as panic began to set in. I looked at the real door again, still empty, still quiet, but something had changed. The air felt heavier, like the room was holding its breath, waiting. I stepped back slowly, never taking my eyes off the doorway. And then I heard it, a faint sound from the hallway, a soft, dragging noise, like something brushing against the wall as it moved. I raised the camera with trembling hands, pointed it again, and took another shot. The image loaded, and I nearly dropped it. The figure was at the threshold now, one long, unnatural arm reaching toward the doorframe, fingers stretched, too many joints bending in ways they shouldn't. I stumbled backward, heart racing, every instinct screaming at me to run. But my feet wouldn't move, not yet, not while part of me still clung to the desperate hope that this wasn't real, that there was an explanation, that there had to be. I forced myself to test it, one more time. I turned the camera toward the window, snapped another photo, and checked it immediately. The window in the image was wide open, curtains billowing inward, and behind them, something was already inside the room. I didn't look at the real window. I didn't want to. I didn't need to, because I could hear it now, a faint rustling, fabric shifting, something stepping lightly onto the floor. I spun around anyway, unable to stop myself, and the window, it was still closed, still locked. But the sound didn't stop. It continued, moving, circling, just out of sight, like it was choosing where to stand, choosing how close to get. I backed toward the door again, shaking, barely able to think, the camera still clutched in my hand, and without meaning to, I pressed the shutter once more. The click echoed louder than ever, and when I looked at the image, my blood ran cold, because this time, it wasn't showing the room, it was showing me, standing exactly where I was, but not alone. The figure was right behind me, its face, if it even had one, inches from my head, its form wrapped around me like it had always been there, like it had already caught me. I didn't want to turn around. Every part of me begged me not to. But something else, something darker, forced me to. Slowly, inch by inch, until I was facing the empty space behind me. And for a moment, nothing. Just the quiet room, the still air, the illusion of safety. And then I felt it. Breath, cold, slow, against the back of my neck. I screamed, dropping the camera, scrambling toward the door, throwing it open and running into the hallway without looking back. I didn't stop until I was outside, until the world felt real again. I didn't go back for the camera. I didn't go back for anything. I left everything behind, and I told myself it was over, that whatever it was tied to that room, that object, that nightmare I had escaped. But the next morning, when I checked my phone, there was a photo in my gallery, one I hadn't taken, one I couldn't have taken. It was me, asleep, in a room I didn't recognize, the angle wrong, too close, like it had been taken by something standing right beside the bed. And in the corner of the image, barely visible, that same figure, watching, waiting. And at the bottom of the screen, the timestamp, tomorrow, 2:17 a.m. And ever since then, every night, at exactly that time, my phone vibrates, a new photo appearing, each one closer, each one darker, until tonight, when the image finally showed nothing, all at all, just an empty bed and the imprint of something sitting on it, as if whatever was watching no longer needed the camera, because now it's already here.
I didn't mean to take the last train. No one ever really does. It's something that just happens. A wrong turn, a delayed call, a moment of hesitation that stretches a little too long. And suddenly, you're standing alone on a platform that feels off, like it exists slightly outside the rest of the city. I remember checking the time, 1:43 a.m., the digital board flickering like it was struggling to stay awake. Everything around me felt drained, colors muted, sounds distant. Even the air felt heavier, thicker, like breathing through something unseen. There were no announcements, no footsteps, no distant hum of people, just silence, deep, unnatural silence. And then the train arrived, not with the usual rush of wind or metallic screech, but quietly, gliding in like it had always been there, like it hadn't arrived at all, just revealed itself. The door slid open with a soft hiss, and I hesitated. Something inside me, something instinctive, told me not to get on, but logic, routine, that dull autopilot we all rely on, pushed me forward. I stepped inside, and the doors closed behind me, immediately, too quickly, like they had been waiting for that exact moment. The carriage was empty, completely empty, rows of seats stretching out under dim, flickering lights. No driver visible through the front glass, no movement, nothing, just me. I told myself it was late. People take earlier trains, this was normal. But even as I thought it, I knew it wasn't true, because cities don't just stop, not like this. I sat down anyway, choosing a seat near the middle, trying to feel grounded, trying to feel in control. The train started moving almost instantly. No jolt, no acceleration, just motion, smooth and unnatural, like sliding through something instead of traveling across tracks. I looked out the window, expecting darkness, tunnels, maybe the occasional passing light. But what I saw wasn't that. It was wrong. The station outside didn't move, not at first. It stayed there, frozen, like an image. And then it began to stretch, slowly, unnaturally, the edges pulling away as if reality itself was being dragged backward while the train stayed still. Or maybe it was the other way around. Maybe the train wasn't moving at all. Maybe everything else was. I blinked hard, rubbed my eyes, but it didn't change. The platform warped, bending into shapes that didn't make sense. And then, suddenly, it was gone, replaced by darkness. Not tunnel darkness, not the kind broken by lights every few seconds, but complete, endless black, like looking into something that had no bottom. I leaned closer to the glass, trying to see anything, any detail, any reference point, but there was nothing, just my reflection. Pale, tense, eyes darting, and then it smiled. I froze, because I knew I hadn't, but my reflection, it was smiling, wide, too wide, stretching further than my face should allow. I jerked back from the window, heart racing, refusing to look again, telling myself it was a trick of light, stress, exhaustion, anything but what it felt like, anything but real. The lights flickered above me, once, twice, and then went out completely, plunging the carriage into darkness, thick, suffocating darkness that swallowed everything. I couldn't even see my hands. I reached for my phone, fumbling, dropping it once before managing to turn on the flashlight. The beam cut through the dark, weak but enough. And that's when I noticed something. The seats, they weren't empty anymore. Shapes sat in them, still, silent, facing forward. My breath caught in my throat. I hadn't heard anyone enter, hadn't seen movement, but they were there. Dozens of them, their outlines just visible in the dim light, heads slightly tilted, bodies too still. I told myself not to panic, not to react. Maybe they had always been there. Maybe I just hadn't noticed. But deep down, I knew that wasn't true, because the air had changed. It felt crowded now, heavy with something watching, something aware. I slowly raised the light, illuminating the nearest figure, and immediately wished I hadn't. Its face, or what should have been its face, was blurred, not like fog or shadow, but like something unfinished, features shifting slightly, never settling, eyes that weren't quite in the right place, a mouth that opened just a little too wide, revealing nothing inside, just more of that same shifting void. I stumbled back into the aisle, the light shaking in my hand, and as it moved, the figures reacted. Not at once, not dramatically, just subtle changes, heads turning slightly, bodies adjusting, as if they were aligning themselves, focusing on me. I tried to move toward the door, but the train, it didn't feel the same anymore. The space seemed longer, stretched, like the carriage had grown while I wasn't looking. Each step felt wrong, distances not matching what I saw. And behind me, I could hear them now. Not footsteps, not movement, but breathing, slow, uneven, overlapping dozens of breaths that didn't quite sync, creating a sound that crawled under my skin. I reached for my phone, slamming my hand against the emergency button. Nothing happened. No sound, just that same dead silence. Except now, it wasn't silent, because they had started whispering, faint at first, almost like the train itself was speaking, but then clearer, layered voices, too many to separate, repeating the same phrase, over and over. Stay with us. I shook my head, backing away, pressing myself against the door as if I could force it open, but it didn't budge. The whispers grew louder, closer, and when I turned, they were standing now, all of them, filling the aisle, their forms stretching slightly, too tall, too thin, the blur of their faces shifting faster now, trying, failing to resemble something human. One of them stepped forward, movements jerky, unnatural, like a puppet learning how to walk. It stopped just a few feet away, head tilting, studying me, and then, slowly, it raised its hand, mimicking a gesture I recognized, a wave. I didn't respond, couldn't, my body locked in place. And then it spoke, not in that layered chorus anymore, but in a single voice, clear, familiar, my voice. You weren't supposed to notice. Something inside me snapped, survival finally overpowering the paralysis. I turned and ran, pushing past them, or trying to, but as I moved, they shifted too, not blocking me directly, just appearing where I needed to go, like they already knew my path, like they existed one step ahead of me, always.
I stumbled, fell hard against the floor, the light skidding away, plunging everything back into darkness. And in that moment, I felt them, close, surrounding me, their breaths inches from my skin, their presence pressing in from every side. I squeezed my eyes shut, waiting, expecting something, pain, hands, anything. But instead, there was just stillness, and then a soft sound. The doors opening. I opened my eyes slowly, and the lights flickered back on. The carriage, empty again, completely empty. No figures, no whispers, nothing. Just me, lying on the floor, the train standing still at a platform. I scrabbled to my feet, grabbed my phone, and ran out without looking back. The station looked normal, bright, alive, people moving, talking, everything exactly as it should be, like nothing had happened, like I imagined all of it. I stood there, trying to catch my breath, trying to convince myself it was over, and then I noticed the clock. 1:43 a.m., the same time as before, not a minute passed, not a second. And when I looked back at the train, the doors were still open, waiting, and inside, just for a second, I saw them again, sitting quietly, facing forward. And in the reflection of the glass, I saw myself, already sitting among them, smiling, wider than I ever could. I moved into the house because it was cheap. Suspiciously cheap. The kind of cheap that makes you feel lucky for exactly 3 seconds before something in your gut starts whispering that nothing this good comes without a cost. But I ignored that feeling. I needed the space, the silence, the distance from people. And at first, that's exactly what I got. The first night was quiet. Too quiet, maybe. But after months of noisy apartments and restless neighbors, silence felt like a gift. Until it didn't. Until around 2:17 a.m., when I heard the first knock. Soft, hollow, like someone tapping gently on wood from far away. I froze, listening, counting my breaths, waiting for it to stop. But it didn't. It came again. 3 slow knocks, spaced out, deliberate, like something was thinking between each tap. I told myself it was pipes. Old houses always have sounds. Expanding wood, settling walls, harmless, explainable, normal. So I turned over and forced my eyes shut. But just as sleep began to take me, the knocking came again. This time closer, not distant anymore, not inside the walls, but right behind my bedhead. I sat up instantly, heart pounding, staring at the wall in the darkness. And for a moment, nothing, just silence. Thick, heavy silence pressing into my ears. And then, a scratch, slow, dragging, like fingernails testing the surface, tracing, searching. I didn't sleep that night, not really. Just lay there, watching, waiting, pretending it wasn't happening, pretending I wasn't terrified. Morning came eventually, pale light slipping through the curtains like nothing had happened, and in daylight, everything felt stupid, irrational. I even laughed at myself, until I noticed the wall. 3 faint lines scratched into the paint, long, uneven, too deep to be accidental. I told myself it must have been there before, something I just hadn't noticed. But I knew that wasn't true. I would have noticed. I would have remembered. I spent the day unpacking, trying to shake it off, telling myself I needed sleep. That was all, just exhaustion playing tricks. But that night, I stayed awake, deliberately, sitting on the bed, lights off, staring at the wall, waiting. And at exactly 2:17 a.m., it came again. The knock, softer this time, almost hesitant, like it knew I was listening, like it was testing me. I didn't move, didn't breathe, just stared. And then, something happened that I still can't explain. The wall shifted, not visibly, not like something breaking through, but like something behind it leaned forward, pressing gently, enough to make the surface bulge, just slightly, just enough to catch the faint light from the window. And then, another knock, from inside that bulge, right where something or someone would be if they were standing inches behind the wall. I stumbled back, nearly falling off the bed, every instinct screaming at me to run, to get out, to leave everything behind. But I didn't. I couldn't. Because curiosity, that horrible, dangerous curiosity, rooted me in place.
I reached out, slowly, trembling, and placed my hand against the wall, right where the bulge had been. It felt warm, not like wood, not like drywall, but like skin that had been holding heat. And then it knocked back, directly against my palm. I ripped my hand away so fast I almost screamed, but no sound came out, just air, shaking, useless air. The knocking stopped after that, completely, as if it had gotten what it wanted, or realized something. I didn't sleep again, not that night, not the next, or the one after, but the sounds kept coming, always at the same time, always closer, always more intentional. Scratches turning into dragging, knocks turning into patterns, almost like language, like something was trying to communicate but didn't quite know how. And then one night, it changed. Instead of knocking, it whispered. Not words, not at first, just a low, breathy sound, like air being forced through something not meant for speech. I pressed my ear to the wall, against every instinct screaming at me not to, and that's when I heard it. Faint, broken, stretched like it hadn't been used in years. Help. I jerked back, heart slamming against my ribs, mind racing. Something was in there, trapped, alive, or at least it sounded alive. I told myself I had to help, that I couldn't just ignore it, that if there was even a chance. I grabbed a hammer from my toolbox, hands shaking so badly I almost dropped it, and approached the wall, the same spot, the scratches now deeper, darker, almost like they'd been made from the inside trying to get out. "I'm here," I whispered, feeling insane even as I said it. "I'm going to help you." Silence. And then, a soft, eager knock, faster this time, excited. I raised the hammer, hesitated for just a second, and then struck. The sound echoed louder than it should have, like hitting something hollow, too hollow. I hit it again and again until cracks spread across the surface, thin lines branching out like veins. And then, with one final blow, the wall gave way. Just a small opening, jagged, dark, and from inside, something moved. Not clearly, not fully visible, just a shift in the darkness, a shape where there shouldn't have been one. I leaned closer, heart in my throat, trying to see, trying to understand. "Are you okay?" I whispered. And for a moment, nothing. Just that darkness, thick, unnatural darkness that seemed to swallow the light. And then it whispered back, clearer this time, almost relieved. "You shouldn't have opened it." The voice wasn't human, not really. It had too many layers, too many tones overlapping, like multiple voices speaking from different distances. And then, the hand came through, pale, elongated, fingers too long, joints bending slightly wrong, reaching slowly through the hole, not desperate, not frantic, but calm, deliberate, like it knew I wasn't going anywhere. I stumbled back, dropping the hammer, every part of me screaming to run now, to leave, to get out before it was too late. But my legs wouldn't move. I just watched, frozen, as the hand stretched further, the arm following, sliding through the gap like it didn't obey normal space, like the wall wasn't a barrier, but just a thin veil. And then, I realized something that made my stomach drop. The space behind the wall, it wasn't a room, it wasn't empty, it was endless. The darkness didn't end. It went on, deeper, wider than the house itself, impossible. And something was inside it, something that had been waiting. The hand touched the floor, then another followed, and slowly, carefully, it began to pull itself through, not rushing, not forcing, just emerging, like it had all the time in the world, like it knew, eventually, I would stop resisting. I turned to run, finally breaking free of whatever had held me in place, sprinting toward the door, but as I reached it, I heard the knock again, right behind me. Not from the wall, but from inside the house, closer than it had ever been. I froze, hand on the doorknob, breath caught in my throat. And then, from somewhere deep inside the hallway, I heard my own voice, perfectly mimicked, whispering, "Don't leave, it gets lonely in here." I didn't turn around. I couldn't, because I already knew whatever I'd let out, it wasn't just behind me anymore. It was inside the house, moving, learning, and worst of all, it sounded exactly like me. And now, every night at 2:17, there's knocking again, not from the walls, from the doors, from the floors, from places that shouldn't make sound. And sometimes, when I try to sleep, I hear it breathing beside me, matching my rhythm, waiting, patient, until I finally stop pretending it isn't real. Because the truth is, I don't think it wanted to escape. I think it just needed someone to let it in. And now, it's not knocking anymore. Now, it's listening.